I don't have to do anything for the PE. All right. I think we're good then. I'm doing it live on YouTube. Just make sure that, yeah, it's got notifications. I put this on the feed so that everyone's on too. Yeah. Alrighty, sounds good. I think we're good. We're not breaking any laws, right? Cool. Alright, thanks. Bye.
No. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Unless they were gonna be here for weeks or something. Talked about it's probably, she said, probably within the next couple that goes. I'll tell Nancy when she brings it. You know, like, and one time she asked it, okay to ask.
Other than that, no, they're gonna try to bring in the 5 acres on the O'Halloran piece. Okay. And they're gonna come in for a, pre-op on that. Where are they going to, where's this camera at? This one? Yeah. That one. Or, yeah, that one. Yeah, move around it. So we're live then, we are. Okay, do you have 2 cameras? Wait, what about that one? Are we live on that one? We're live on every one. Great. Stop, you're making it. Yes. How's it going? We have, new cameras to go.
You're trying these cameras?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they're not high down.
Much better than our previous version. Make sure we, zoom in on just you. Hey, Eva.
How are you doing?
I am doing great.
Hi, Mira.
Play all day.
Yes, right?
Here? I can move too if you want to sit next to me. You sit next to me. There before I pinch my finger. Here? Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Thank you.
What do you want me to do?
How you do it, but you pinch your finger.
Okay.
And?
Fair enough.
Oh, come on.
It may not be plugged in though.
Okay, this one's not?
Yes, I am aware. I know what you're talking about. What do you want me to do?
Okay. Yeah, put a screen over here. Okay.
If that one's not plugged in either. one that came through the shred line.
Oh, fancy, schmancy.
Really?
Um,
What?
Doing
How many came through this?
Apple pinning it off, that's why I said fancy schmancy.
Yeah. And Courtney got here and so I went home. I just did the first 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
We're still gonna try to upgrade our,
I forgot to bring my canned food to donate.
Exactly. So fingers crossed, like at least the cameras are,
If I wanted, I don't have, there's some stuff that can go in those blue barrels that aren't
can we move that?
covered fast enough.
Yeah. I bought some canned clams, and I opened up one can, and I'm like,
Perfect, now we're all in. No, that'd be good.
That'll do it every time. How far were you there? I hadn't called you.
No, I was literally.
they were the Polar brand. Is that it? Yeah.
Anyone online?
And why I answered.
Yeah.
We got John and Shauna.
all right.
Hey, John. Shauna, if you can hear me, you don't know how to do it on. John, can you
Just tear up this message for me?
hear you?
Raise it up a little bit. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Now we can hear you. John, are you there? Eric, John,
Quiet.
I know, it's a good thing I drank most of it.
Yeah, I'll get it going here, and then I'll hand it off, and you guys can select your chair, and then, the chair. From there.
So I can hear Mike really well, but I can't hear anybody else.
Oh, okay, what we can do, can we,
I'll test this mic. This is.
this one, this way.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
that way?
Good morning.
I think nobody else was talking.
Yeah, we were just mumbling with each other.
I don't know how to turn off that feedback. There's a way that I don't know.
Is it an echo?
Clear, coming out of the.
Who are we having an issue with?
There's feedback, so like the audio repeats itself, like, I think it was repeating itself through the.
New camera, you said it.
All right. Okay, so the time is 9:32. We're gonna go ahead and get this meeting started. First thing that we have today is a roll call. So, please signify if you are here when I call your name. Counselor Gelfin. Here. Counselor Tyso. Here. Counselor Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Gearhart. Here. Commissioner Gaylor.
Here.
Commissioner Boehner.
Here.
Counselor Braverman.
She has a hearing today. Yeah, she's out.
Okay. Commissioner Nichols Gearhart.
Here.
And Mayor Kazmierski.
Here.
And Counselor Arditi. All right. Form is made. At this point in time, we ask that the committee select a chair from amongst the budget committee members. Budget committee members are Mr. Gearhart, Ms. Nichols Gearhart, Gaylor, and Ms. Boehner. So if you guys can select one amongst yourselves. Boehner?
Peter.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I didn't-
I nominate Viva Gala, please.
We have a motion made by
Commissioner Viner to nominate, Viva Gaylor as chair. Is there a second? That could be anybody.
I thought it had to be those four of you.
No, this is the budget committee. It's everyone here, including the folks online. So we have a motion.
I'll second it.
And Tyso second. All right. We'll do a roll call by voice. Yay or nay? Counselor Gelfand.
Yay.
Counselor Tyso. Counselor Hartman.
Yay.
Commissioner Gerhart.
Yay.
Commissioner Gaylor. Commissioner Boehner.
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols-Guerra.
Yay.
Mayor Kazmierski.
Yes.
Is Shauna on? I mean, is she on the budget committee? Is she here? Oh. Shauna, did you get added to the budget committee? Or were you added to the charter committee? Mayor Kazmierski is not present.
Oh.
No, Rachel is present.
Is she showing up as Shauna?
I think so.
Oh,
Rachel, say something.
Shauna, I guess.
You have Shauna's cell phone? Okay. So, yeah, we got you. We got you now. All right. Thank you. All right. Motion carries. Chair Gaylor, take it away.
Thank you.
First off, we usually start with Mike to present the budget to us, so that we can ask any questions as we go along. So,
Hopefully everyone had their binders, given to them over the last week and had a chance to review. Up front, when you start opening up, you'll see our org chart. In addition, under police department, we have the chief, the lieutenant, the sergeant, and our 4 officers. Those are not indicated on the org chart. But just so you know, we did fill a public information piece that we've offered a position to. Hopefully that individual will start here in the next month or so. Over the last year, we've added an additional officer and sergeant's position, so you'll see those reflected, as well as the public information officers.
On that org chart, how do you know Walden, Sherwood, and Tigard budgets? And they have an extra at the very, very top of the both city council. They have a box that says residents.
Okay.
I think that's a good message, a good visual aid to anybody who's reading this. That, oh, okay, the residents are the boss. We report to them.
oh,
Only because we saw that in Tigard. 2 of those 3. Is that correct, man?
So, which 2 had it? You said Tiger,
Of those 3, 2 of them did. I don't remember which 2.
and which were the 3? Tiger. There's no way we'll dig it up. The next one, as we go through, is yourselves, the compromising members of the budget committee, or members of the budget committee composition. Next is the salary schedule that we're proposing for 2025-26. This is based off of an ongoing union negotiation that we're currently going. There is approximately 15% raise incorporated into these steps, as well as
other,
elements to the personnel that are in the union agreement still to be finalized, so just so you're aware, that's in there.
next third.
And then we get into the budget message, which is your first half. Typically, when we do a budget, it's our job to present a balanced budget based on our revenues and our expenditures. We typically try to budget, revenues conservatively, so we try to under budget what our revenues are and over budget what our expenditures are. We do this to try to stay within the confines of the budget throughout the year and make sure that at the end of the year, we're in a better fiscal position than we are at the start of the year. And you'll kind of see that has been an ongoing trend for the last 10 years. So since I started here, I think the beginning fund balance was about 1.1 million. Now you'll see the beginning fund balance is roughly about, 5 to 6 million? Are we at 7 now? 7 million now. So
Right now it's no.
I thought it was 5.
Oh, you mean general fund?
Yeah. Oh, is it just 3.6, right?
Yeah.
So, you'll see but overall balance
Total fund 17 million. Total fund.
for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But ultimately, we try to budget conservatively, as I had mentioned. This year, you're going to see some increases in personnel. You'll also have the increase of the additional office space down the way. We are still bursting at the seams around here, so one of the things that we are looking at is how to essentially get more space and what we're going to have to do in the interim until we get to. So you'll notice that all the staff members are pretty much doubled up in this building and tripled and quadrupled up in the squad locker. And essentially, we're bursting at the seams. We are, the FFA gave a presentation about a potential new city hall. In order to do that city hall, we need to really consider a urban renewal district, establishment of an urban renewal district that will funnel tax revenues to that source and allow us to take out revenue bonds that avoid the tax on the people, and allows us to hopefully pull the necessary revenues pieces together to fund the construction, purchase, and ultimate development of the municipal site on the other side of town. We have no intention of abandoning this building at all. This building is still planned to be courthouse and satellite police station and records. So we will still have a solid presence here. We might even keep passports here as well. And then we'd just be running a dual footprint. Anyways, that's probably more, not this budget year, but in the future budget year. But we are looking at that, and establishing an urban renewal district is the key to actually.
FFA, excuse me, what's the FFA stand?
FFA, that's the architectural group. I don't know what's.
Oh, I know what it is now. I just thought it was the government.
What is it, fair?
Fletcher Bar in Iowa.
Okay, all right.
Well, I go, oh, far.
So Mike, this is going to use the courtroom by the court?
Yeah, currently is used as a courtroom, yep. And then we would have space over there, but, we would still maintain satellite court here, because most of our, traffic violations are right here on 99W. And so until we start getting more activity over on the west side, there's really no reason to have it over there. And this is actually, strategically located. It makes sense.
Same thing for passport.
Yes, same thing for passports, yeah. It's better, it's currently a better service-oriented location.
And with the highway, it always will be.
Yep, exactly. So other than that, you'll find that our beginning fund balances have steadily increased throughout the years. We have a permanent tax rate. Our permanent tax rate is 1.526, essentially $1.53 per thousand. On top of that, we also have our police levy at 63 cents per. We cannot change our permanent tax rate, our set permanent tax rate. The only thing that adjusts for us is any sort of fees or franchise agreements have the ability to flex, but, and the levy, to a local option levy, we have ability to flex some taxes there, but, otherwise Otherwise, we're on a permanent set that's been set since 1999 with Measure 5 and Measure 50.
I have a question on the levy. What if it doesn't pass?
If the levy doesn't pass, we'll end up losing about $400,000 to $500,000 of potential revenue, and we'll have to look at potential layoffs on the police side of the house. If not, hopefully not.
What are the odds? What do you feel the odds?
It's been favorably voted for in the past, but there's been a lot of chaos lately, and a lot of negativity circulating. So I'm not sure right now. I'm really concerned about it. To be honest with you, I think it's a legitimate concern because of all the animosity and negativity there. So not ideal. Kind of want, when it's a election year like this, we want positive vibes and good things happening and people happy and content, and that is not what we have been witnessing. Hopefully, people still support their police, despite all that process. Usually it goes pretty well. Last time, I think it was overwhelmingly approved, and we asked for an increase, 55 cents, 3 cents. This time, not asking for any increase, mostly because of the political turmoil that we've been. So, we didn't feel comfortable trying to ask for more, even though we need more. We didn't. Just hopefully it passes. That'll be kind of a sounding board on where we stand with that. I think this community has shown their support for the police in the past multiple times, and hopefully they come and represent once again. But I don't know for sure. As we go through to the next page, as I mentioned, we can't really increase our permanent tax rate. Last year, the city had 16 residential building permits processed. And this next year, we're expecting closer to 200 to 250, which is a huge jump. And you'll see that when we get to the building codes department, because you'll see like over $1 million in contracted services. With that, you also have probably over $1 million in revenues. That's kind of a pass-through revenue.
I would like, is the permits we're talking about down by Al's or more by the 136?
Down by
Al's. The 136 won't come in this year.
Nah, I doubt it. Even if they'll have to do all the groundwork and get most of the infrastructure in place, and usually put down a what we call like a surface, like they have to lay down their preliminary layer. They have to have a first and second layer before we'll allow the building permits, because that allows for fire and emergency to and from the site. So the risk that we have if we don't do that is like what happened down in Billablois a few years back, where a construction site caught on fire and they had some trouble getting some emergency vehicles in there to access that site. So what we try to make sure is that the infrastructure is solid with at least the first coat down or first layer down. That way emergency vehicles can access, provide emergency. So I don't anticipate that.
Is development, like late, like maybe a year late?
At least 2 years, I would say. Our initial plan, COVID and pandemic kind of put us in a funk, but we had originally got our urban growth boundary expansion in 2018, and then Metro had provided us 5 years to get everything processed. It was our initial thought that we would have everything processed 20 and be seeing houses put on the market by 21, 22. And with COVID and the relook and everything else that transpired, that pushed us back almost 2 years. And so we didn't get the finals in until 2023 and toward the end of 2020. So that basically pushed us back almost another year on top of the 2 that we were behind. So we're at least 3 years behind. If
Developers aren't very happy about it.
there's not much we can do on that front, just because the planning process is difficult to predict on where your hangups are going to be, and it's a real thing in Oregon that nothing really happens like you want it to, or as quickly as you want it to, or as slowly as you want it to. Everything's kind of has its own timeline, which is outside of our ability to predict. So usually when a developer comes in with a plan, we have 120 days to try to process it. But when you're looking at large things like this, where it's like a master plan or urban growth situation, that's on the city to process it under their own timeline. And so that, like you saw, it took us over 5 years, if not 5 to 6, plus the 2 years.
Sorry to interrupt real quick.
7 years.
Can you hear me?
What's that?
Oh,
Yeah.
This is on the call, but he was saying that doesn't have the option to like mute or unmute. I don't know if Ronnie, you saw him pop in, if he could have permissions to chat.
Who is it?
Andy Olson, on the committee?
He's not on the committee, Rachel. He's a member of the audience.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question? Sure.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Last week we heard from the governor that she's thinking about no SDC Portland.
Yeah.
That would relate a lot of excitement here.
It's worrisome for sure, because I don't understand how we're supposed to pay for our infrastructure. Sorry, we only have one door that works with the other one. But how we're supposed to pay for our infrastructure if we don't have the SDCs. All of our infrastructure is SDC funded. It's not tax funded. And so unless we get some funding from the state legislature to offset that, we have no means of meeting the requirements that we need if we don't have the SDCs.
Mike, may I jump in on that?
Sure.
So the SDCs in Portland, the reason they're talking about removing that is the amount of obstacles that exist in the city of Portland to get any development done. They're trying to offset those timelines with trying to give financial feedback. There's different taxes in Multnomah County. So there's a lot that I could go into this, but I don't think we should ever be concerned about our STCs in King City compared to anything in Portland. It's a completely different ball game, not even the same ballpark. So it's a good thing to bring up, but it's not something we should worry about. They're focused not on single family homes, but on multifamily, like multiple door buildings. So they're talking about bigger multi-million dollar, $30-40 million developments, not single family homes.
Good, thank you, John, appreciate it.
I'll just make one comment. When I was on the Tiger City Council, there were a couple developments that were Habitat for Humanity or a special building built for disabled veterans. The city chose to have our normal SDCs because of the nature of the development. But that is the only experience that I'm aware of in any jurisdiction. That was, yeah, for Tiger, that they chose in an effort to help get this funding going.
I think John makes a good point, we're not
Yeah,
comparing.
we're not, no, that's apples and oranges.
A 20-story apartment in King City.
Not in our life.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah, sure.
So on the second page, you'll see a really big number. It says 630 million and change. That is the assessed value of everything in King City, and that is our tax base. So when you look at the $1.52, that is our tax rate, our permanent tax rate, it's off of that total assessed value of 630 million of all units within currently. So I think over the next, 5-10 years, you're going to see that number grow. Those houses come in. They will be, the difference between houses on the east side versus houses on the west side is that they're assessed at current market rate. whereas the houses on the east side are assessed at the market rate in 1990. So it's a huge difference. Most of the houses over here are assessed at like $120,000 to $130,000 assessed value. So that basically generates anywhere from $100 to $200 per house, whereas the houses in Edgewater are assessed at values in 2006, 2007, so they're more in like the $300 to $400 range, so we get about $300 to $400 on that. The houses out that come in now, we'll see where they come in assessed at, but my guess is they'll be more in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. And so therefore, I'm anticipating that we should receive anywhere from like $500,000 to $600,000 per unit. Not thousand, $500 to $600 per unit.
I have a question currently on the 630. What percentage is residential and what percentage is commercial? And I'll skip on down if that isn't a good question right now.
I don't have a breakdown of that right now.
Because I'm thinking the residential is going to increase quicker than the commercial for a few years, and then commercial will fill in down there.
Yeah, so as the commercial pieces will probably, as you mentioned, probably come in toward the latter set, probably around phase 4, 3 or 4, I think you'll start seeing those commercial components get filled. And then as the demand grows over there, I think you're going to see Al's Farm and Garden maybe reassess their footprint and maybe consider what kind of commercial options they have to expand on their site as well. Because I think that there's going to be a high value, the highest and best use value to that property. Not saying Al's is going to go anywhere, but they might actually want to augment their own business with other businesses on that 20-acre footprint that they're seeing.
When that guy annexes down there, will they come into the city?
They're in already, yeah.
Paying his taxes?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
And so, yeah, they are in. And then the other thing to think about is they are on a 20-acre site, and they have a 99-year land lease, and they buy it for $1 at the end. So they can basically do with that site as they want to, and I think they have the purchase option at the end too. I don't anticipate Al's going anywhere. They're going to be a great anchor tenant out there, I think. So happy to have them in King City and forward to good things.
Thank you.
That's about it. Does anyone have any questions about the budget message or?
Yes, Mike, this will probably be the first of my unsophisticated questions. But anyway, on the very first paragraph of the first page, it says the level of service approved. And then the second sentence says we will attempt to implement those. Specifically, if you could outline those for me, what those are, because on the second page, second to the last paragraph, last sentence, it says recognizing the options that are limited. So can you tell me what are things not being met, what your goals are, et cetera?
So every year we have a laundry list of needs that we need to get. The biggest one is probably infrastructure, roads, drainage, erosion, stormwater. We probably are unable to meet the most often. Other things that we have needs that we're unable to meet are like human resources or, our finance department could use a few other folks. Our planning department could use a few other codes we contract with. Those are the resources or the net needs that the city has on an annual basis that we're not necessarily able to meet just because we have limited resources. This year we had to cut 5. We had a list of about 7 or 8 roads that we wanted to hit. We had to cut 5 of them, 5 or 6 of them off. I believe we had to cut 4 of the 6 that were for the store. We have no fund for stormwater. I've been asking the council to consider a stormwater fee for probably 7, 8 years now, but it's just never been a good time. I think it was first introduced back in 2016, 17 as a concept of adopting a stormwater fee after consultation with Clean Water Services. We asked what other cities do to handle their stormwater and erosion issues, and Clean Water Services said that the majority of them apply a stormwater fee. And so we talked about a stormwater fee, and then we were actually getting there, considering it. It was like election year, so it got pushed back. Next year was like the Black Lives Matter riots, so it got pushed back. The year after that was COVID, that got pushed back 2 more years. And then it came down to we had too many land use stuff, and we needed to focus on getting land use stuff through and done. But there's a few things that have been on our list. Stormwater fee is one of them. Parks and Rec fee is another. And there was another one that I'm forgetting. Stormwater, Parks and Rec.
The stormwater issue, though, over on Crown Vista, gas tax, illustrate Mike's point, just to give you some
Gas
background
tax.
on that, is the city engineer suggested that we have to invest in Crown to completely retrofit the stormwater system, because what's happening over there is that the stormwater is infiltrating into the soil, saturating it, and so if we were to repave it, the pavement that we were putting in is on top of ground that's not stable, and so it would be ruined within, like, the lifespan of the new road would not sufficiently last long enough. So in order to completely fix the problem, stormwater, so this is ground, but it's also likely going to be happening in a lot of areas.
When you read stormwater,
Yeah, and then up here we have to engineer a solution to capture the groundwater too, because we have groundwater infiltration from the wetland on the north side of Beef Bend that then goes through the pipe into that storm drainage that's back there, and that is basically saturating the soils on the north side and then traveling south underneath those other buildings. So we're trying to cut that off, capture it, put it into a storm system, and then pipe it down. No longer migrating up, stabilizing all of our fines. So it's a bit of a problem we're trying to do it this year, but it's going to cost us
$150,000
just for that one piece. And then we had to end up cutting out, like Max said, like at least 4 other facilities because of the additional stormwater costs. And we don't. The other thing that people have been asking for is the continuation of the wall along Fisher. We stopped the wall short of 124th Street, and all the residents after that are like, when am I going to get my wall? You know, and we had initially planned on taking that wall all the way down to 131st Street. But, you know, the cost of doing that and the in Washington for that facility is higher than what we've been able to set aside. So that's something maybe we need to. But when you talk about what we're talking about here, it's the continuation of services, police services, services in-house here with the staffing levels, and our passport windows. You know, we did add the public information officer, so hopefully get a little bit more out of that. We've added Max in just the last 2 years, so our planning department is actively moving a lot more. We just added another police officer in a sergeant's position, so our police department is expanding as well. So we are expanding, but what we're proposing for next year is a continuation of where we're at right now for services.
Thank you. So the population really has stayed the same, though?
We've seen the population since I've started here. It was 2,600 when I started here, and now the population is 5,200 to 5,300. So our population has steadily increased, although according to Portland State, it's going down, but we have argued that point with them because they're going off of formula instead of actual census. So when the census data came out, it showed a huge increase from what the Portland State numbers were. Portland State still had us at 3,600, and we're like, we have 3,600 registered voters. Like, unless we have a 100% registered voter situation, then, you know, come on. So the numbers that you see out of Portland State are, in mine and many other professionals in this, are fudged to funnel money away from these little satellite communities and into Portland to offset their losses.
But I guess what I mean is the population for the budget year over to year really hasn't increased.
From when?
Per capita Yeah.
We're adding people,
Yes.
yet the population hasn't grown a lot.
We've almost doubled the population since
Year over year, I'm talking about.
year over year,
Compared to last year,
even compared to last year.
it's doubled.
We've added, no, not doubled, but we have added 32 units. The Habitat for Humanity is 16, the property at the corner of 131st and Fisher is 16, and then we have 12 other units down off Ponderosa Pines that came online. So when you fill those houses, that's, 32, 40, about what? 45, you have 45 units times 2.5, so that's another 100 people maybe. So to see the population at least get another 100 in the next year. And then, so that's probably a good indication, like every year is probably another 100, another 100, another 100.
For when the 245 houses come on.
Yes, then you're gonna
See
see
it.
500 to 1,000, yes. Yes.
Yeah, one of the
And then-
issues with the formula, it is including kids. And King City has, historically had a much smaller number of kids because so much of the city is 55 and over. So
But-
that really skews.
So the year before that, we had a 20 to 30 unit apartment complex there on 131st Street, as well as Maxfield Gardens, Arden Village there, which was another 30 units or so there. Then the year before that, you had Castle Oaks East, and then the year before that, you had Bedford South. So every year we've added, and so that's why you've seen the population steadily increase. I think over the next couple of years, you'll also see the population explode.
Thank you.
I had a question. I know there's been discussion of a gas tax since I moved here quite a few years ago. Has that discussion reemerged as something we need to look at again, or where is that idea?
It's always on my mind. It's always been there on my mind, and it's always something that I bring up with every council when we get to our goal setting. My hope is that we can come with this new council here once we become whole again and have a goal setting stage, and that's on my list, along with the stormwater and parks and rec fees, as well as the urban renewal.
Well, part of my question, when I was on the council, I found out that if we did a local levy, it would only be paid by people who live here. Am I correct?
That's correct.
If we did a gas tax, then that would be paid by everyone who used the gas station. And my understanding is that more than half of the people that use gas stations don't live here.
That's right.
Therefore, it would be having people who don't live here help pay the cost. Am I correct?
That's very correct, yeah.
That's why we formed that business roundtable, in the pandemic, and we had, so we could get the support, because last time there was some non-support of the service stations, the owners, and we did turn them. So we didn't accomplish a whole lot from that business roundtable that we did for a while, but we got that contact that we were struggling, and that was back with Ken Gibson. So that was a few mayors ago that when I hosted that business roundtable.
Yeah, there's,
It was successful in a little bit.
I want to say the trip gen on 99W east and south is about 19 to 20,000 each. And so you're looking at roughly 40,000 vehicles every day going by, and a number of those vehicles are filling up at these two gas stations at Arco and Space Age, and it would be a huge boom for our local streets projects if we could actually get a gas tax passed. But it has gone down in blaze glory every time we've tried.
Gas
That'd be messaging.
gas station.
Yeah.
That's what we were trying.
Everybody in King City would vote for it.
Yeah, I would think so too. So, like, what I would recommend that we do, if we were to put it out on a ballot, is we hire a marketing company to blast it out well in advance and do a public education campaign on what exactly the benefits are, and put that out and then get everybody educated on it and then put it on the ballot, but.
Who actually live here, our voices. You know, and I mean.
Hopefully work with the HOAs to get, that's where you can get the message out too.
Sure,
And-
you know, I mean, it was like, you know, your campaign signs, you know, you had a really strong message on them.
And they were relatively cheap, really.
But,
You
I
don't know.
mean, the point is that it seems like you personally have, grasp of the strong marketing.
Yes. But I agree with Mike, it'd be great to hire professionals. That way we'd probably be pretty secure and confident.
And I like Viva's idea about contacting the HOAs.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a liaison from city council that's HOA person, I think.
Right.
And I think the marketing person gets your material and gets it to you. You as the community needs to get it out, the word out.
Right.
Like you said, the messaging. Then we all that live here need to get the support behind it.
Yeah, when I was, on the council, I was liaison to, KCCA, for example, and Garden Villa, which is all the attached housing. And I did a presentation twice a year to each of those entities about what was going on. And then when we had the police levy come up, I had somebody else from city come and do a presentation. And there were a lot of people in the audience. They had a lot of good questions, but I could see from the head nodding, once that was done, that the police levy was going to be.
There's more favorable understanding.
Yes, yeah.
We should be doing that like right now then.
Well, that's one of the issues that I have been complaining about, is the lack of the council doing their liaison jobs for the last, since COVID.
Well, this little future budget, it sounds to me that this group in here is pro-gas tax. And so if we could get that message to the city council, that I know they're only online, except for getting in jail. Yes, but it's something that, it sounds like this room is very positive, and hopefully we represent a cross-section.
It's something to consider for like the November ballot, obviously right now, but.
Maybe next May. I mean, if you give a little more time, depending on the
It
climate.
really should happen when we have, either a primary or a general election on the ballot, because too many people don't focus when it's off year elections.
We should have a poll to decide how many people we think are gonna vote on this one, but isn't there a lot of action? Mike.
All right, so, we'll go ahead and go off the budget message into the, summary of all funds, which you'll find on the next page. Kind of walks through, what I'd like to bring your attention to is the, second column where it says, actual amounts, and then the final, column where it says proposed budget for the 25-26 year. The 23-24
Our audit numbers, so that gives you confirmed numbers on money
that were allocated and spent, and also where our funds were and where they are today.
not done yet, it's pretty close.
So it just gives you, as you walk through each of these lines, you'll see like where we're growing and where the revenues are coming from. And it also gives you a good idea and picture of how quickly things are escalating and where things are going. So you'll see like we've added up to 3 additional positions, actually 5. We've added 5 positions when we add Max and Diana in as well.
2 years ago.
Diana was 2 years ago, Max was 1, so, yeah, so, when you add all the positions together, we have about 5 additional positions, into those numbers that you'll see as it's reflected. Additionally, the cost of living has increased.
No new headcount is in
This
2025.
year.
It reflects
Yeah.
full-time equivalent of people that were hired in the 425
Yeah.
years. Just, there's no new positions in
When's the IR?
The PIO,
PIO?
Yeah, so they're technically, they were a position added in the last budget cycle, as was the additional officer and the sergeant's position. So all those were added in the last budget cycle. And if we get to a position where, houses are coming online, or like areas are brought into the city that were not anticipated, or we have an extra need, then we can bring the budget back and ask for a supplemental or adjustment. Typically, if it's over 10%, then we have to do a whole budget meeting. And then, yeah, we have to have a budget hearing and then go up. If it's just, yeah. If it's just like 1% or something like that, I think we can take it to the council and just get a transfer or something budget is what we do.
I have a question. Do we anticipate, not talking about, the city center area, any anticipated potential annexations this year? I know that there was a petition with folks from Bradley Woods, but it passed on terms of numbers of people who would like to annex, but failed because of the acreage requirement. Do you see that happening in the next fiscal year?
I doubt given the stance of this council, I doubt that we would look at the area south of Fisher in the next fiscal year. But what I do anticipate coming on board is the last remnant of the Charlene property. This is on the far side over there. It's a 5-acre piece. Charlene Woods. It's that white house with the pool with the gopher sign in the front, like gopher treatment or whatever.
Elsner and Beach Bend.
Yeah. And then, so I anticipate that last remnant will come in, as well as the Harrell and O'Daly property, which is down Elsner on the left-hand side. And then the Olmsted property, which is down on the very southern edge along Elsner and Roy Rogers. I anticipate all of those areas will come in over the next year. And then also the Kensington Square, but that should be yeah. So,
in the current fiscal.
and then I think you're gonna see a general, those places are gonna be going.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after those areas are in, I think you're gonna see a general cooling of the annexation and the development movement, and it'll be a slower, more methodical, piece by piece, as infrastructure is expanded or and people start a return on, they can get a larger return on their investment because the infrastructure is already there. So I don't see a lot of parcels in between the ones that are already kind of coming in. Anytime soon. We'll see how that goes.
And just following up, has this issue been discussed with the existing council in terms of their feeling whether they want to see properties come in or not? At a policy level, not individual.
Yeah, well, we've had discussions, you know, I can't go into many of them because it's executive session stuff, but we have had discussions, but we still, like I mentioned, as soon as we have a full council, we really need to sit down and go over some goals and some strategizing on how we move forward strategically. So.
Thank you.
Speaking of goals, the city have a mission statement?
I think we do. I just would have to go dig it. I think we
Mine or somewhere.
It's on our charter, I want to say.
And I would hope it wouldn't be nice if the budget committee had a statement that connected to the vision statement.
We have a number of mission statements in like our other ordinances as well. So like each particular, I think we have an overall mission statement for the organization, but we also have mission statements in all of planning doctrines as well, and our comp plans and all that. So it would be nice, I agree with you, to have those vision statements put up on boards and maybe put around so that we know what our goals are. I agree. I think it would be nice to kind of put those up And I was talking to some folks at a conference that we went to, or that I went to not too long ago up in Vancouver. And, one of the things that we were talking about is like having those goals, put up and visible so that everyone can see them. And so I'm on board with that. Just, I need to make the poster boards and get them up.
It takes a little bit of time up front, I think.
Yeah. I think when our PIO comes on, that'll be one of the first assignments to kind of have them orchestrate that and get some stuff up and around the building so people can see those. Because I think if you read the mission statements and you read the visions and the goals, it starts making a lot of sense. And I think that a lot of the stuff is interwoven and those are the things where, you know, our planners and our consultants and everybody, they look to those vision statements and those goals on how they're going to meet that in a lot of their analyses.
I agree.
Did have signs and things floating around, but COVID really did a number on a lot of things that, and the city, quite frankly, and the community has still not recovered.
Yeah, before we had this room, we had just this conference room that was here, basically from where I'm sitting to that wall. And we would have, just everything plaqued up on the walls, like, and some of them were even like handwritten poster boards that, because we were doing this ongoing charrette for like a month, right? So we had our architects are sitting here hand drawing maps, and our consulting firms, our planner firms were doing poster boards with all the visions and goals that people would bring up and come up to them with, and putting those ideas on paper and trying to integrate them into the overall scope of what the growth was supposed to look like. And some of the main points that I can remember is like building a sense of place, building a culture that's unique to King City, providing access to the natural areas, the river and the trails, and getting that interface of urban and nature, the urban nature interface, and making sure that we have that access, and making sure that our streets they feel comfortable for us, and making sure that we discourage the cut through traffic, and all those other things were all points that were put up on those boards and integrated into all those networks of plans. And that's why when I get this bio on and I can pull those vision statements and goals, and then you guys can really take a look at those and see if there's true consensus still.
Like a lot of the footwork has already been done.
Yeah. Last 8-9 years. So it's been a long process, but it feels good to have it.
The PIO starts when?
They should be on at the end of May. End of May. Yeah, so 1 month. Excited to have her on board. She comes from us from the U.S. Forest Service and from Bend. So she's in Pendleton. She's in Pendleton now with the U.S. Forest Service, but she was at Bend with Tumalo Creek. Oh, yeah. Okay. So excited to get her on board and excited to get some stuff going. And we're trying to get the office retrofitted over there to get space, and I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to put over there. It's a Canyon building under Gaudi Vision. You know where Gaudi Vision is, right down here on the right-hand side? The eye doctor, just past the McCann's new.
Across the street from the car wash.
Yes.
It's a good,
Yeah, across from Caddy Car Wash, where
that's a,
next to the pediatrician.
Where that, like, three-story building is?
Two-story,
It was recently remodeled
yes,
outside.
Is it-
yep, on the outside.
Very good.
All right, so let's continue on. Were there any questions on the financial summary resources? We talked about the number of people being added. You'll see the SDCs for transportation. You'll also see that we didn't really have anything under contingencies back in '23, but what it was is it was set aside under a different program name. They're like the not allocated, and then you'll see it kind of broken out now. So in '23, '24, we had 1.3 million set aside, and this year we've got about 1.8 million set aside between the two funds. You'll see it, the 600,000 and the 1.14. So those two combined for what that one fund was back in '20. kind of use that as a benchmark. I kind of use contingency funds and reserve for future expenditures, as well as our beginning fund balance as kind of a benchmark to see how we're doing. So if you look up at the top where it says beginning fund balance back in 23, 24, it was 4.4, and now we're at 5.2. So I kind of use that as well as our contingencies, and as long as those two numbers continue to grow, I'm a happy camper usually.
Real quick.
Hopefully nothing. Hopefully nothing. It's a rainy day fund because we do operate usually the first 4 to 5 months of the fiscal year off of resources from the prior year. And so hopefully that contingency is there as a buffer that we don't have to dive into. But it is there for like a rainy day. All hell breaks loose. We have another 2,008 on our hands. Right. Yeah. That's one thing, like if the roof collapses or if there's like a unexpected opportunity to purchase some property.
Or a traumatic event happens, as COVID, quite frankly, was a traumatic event. It really fouls everything up.
Yeah. So there are instances where, where the roof is leaking or we have an opportunity, a grant comes up and we need to offset the match. Or we end up losing it. So that's another option is like you can repurpose or go back. And of course with that, depending on how much it is, you might have to go back through this process to move. Typically, if there's a grant and we're looking at it and we don't have it under long-range planning, then we'll come back to the council to see if we can do something. Any other questions on the summary? On the next page, you'll see a nice little graph that kind of shows how we've been heading, and where we're going. Total fund balances here at King City over the span of the last 10 years. You'll see that kind of hit that we took in 2019-20 with the fall of the markets and the pandemic, and then the steady rise afterward. I think in the next couple of years, you're going to see that graph take kind of an exponential more, all the additional development. The next page kind of breaks down how our cash revenues and resources are the basis of these. Cash carryover being the large portion, that's the $3.6 million that I mentioned earlier. You'll see how the majority of ours come in from franchise fees, licenses, building permits. Now, I will mention that a large piece of this is the projected $1 million plus for the building codes for the 200 in some houses coming in. So you're getting a very ordered pie of all the additional development that we're projecting.
Next year it'll go down or up or?
We're actually thinking that it will stay on a steady incline over the next 5 to 10 years. So they're estimating that they can get about 200 units per year, but that's just one company. So if they're doing 200 a year and maybe another company comes in and they're doing 100 to 200 a year, well, now I've got 400 a year or 300 a year instead of just the 200. So right now we're thinking what we have is new home for the most part, but we also have other developers that have been kind of kicking the tires and looking around. So we just can't anticipate that right now. So we're just projecting on just new home. But probably next year will probably be new home and Kensington Square. And the year after that, it might be new home, Kensington Square, maybe another. We don't know for sure.
Building River Place too.
There's multiple developers over there. There's I've seen Lehman Brothers. I've seen Toff. There's at least 5 different development groups out there that I've seen. New homes out there. There's a whole bunch of them.
Lennar.
What's that?
Lennar.
Yeah, Lennar. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of. As I go tour up there to kind of see how the progress is going, I've seen numerous different signs. So you figure and they haven't even started 2.0 yet. This is just River Terrace, the original that they're still working on right now, and 2.0 is about to get kick-started as well. So,
Is that King City or the other side?
that's Tiger.
That's what I thought.
Tiger,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and, they're getting ready to break ground on the last development in one. That's the one across,
April Lane there?
yeah.
Yeah. So I saw something about that on, Nextdoor over the weekend, and they were like, it's King City. I was like, no, it's not us. Not us. So this is the one that's straight up from Elsner, and it's north up toward, Art Rucken is technically west of this one, but it is up and over. It's a 20 acre site up there, and it has, 18 units or something?
It's 20 units per acre, and it's well over 200 homes, and their only current access point is driving all the way up to 150th. So there's going to be a lot of pressure to deal with. They're theoretically going to have April Lane gated off, but I think that's going to become a hot button issue that King City's going to have to develop, since April Lane is not quite across the street from Elsner. Another offset issue.
Tiger has expressed trying to work with us to figure that.
Yeah, but that's going to be a hot button issue
So
for council the next few years.
Tiger tried to put the cost of a roundabout on us, and we're like, no, it's not on us, because their area hasn't been planned yet. They haven't finished master planning their whole area. So, and I wouldn't say they were trying to put it solely on us, but they were trying to make sure that we preserve the opportunity to put a roundabout in there and collect fees to contribute later. And so, one, it's a Washington County facility still, and Tiger's going to be putting a lot more onto that intersection than we. So,
A couple of months ago, Patty and I drove up to River Terrace just to look at it. I think Emma, New Homes people suggested you guys need to drive up there and see. That's a great example of what could happen. But it's very hilly up there, and we won't have that much. Our terrain's a lot flatter down here. I think the possibility is a little nicer. Anyways, I encourage everybody to go around.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I encourage you to go down and see Billbois too. In Wilsonville, a lot of what we've integrated into our planning is based off of best practices that came out of Billbois and Wilsonville. And then another one is the Reed's Crossing development over in Bend that we pulled on. And then there's Reed's, what's the one out in Hillsborough? Is it
Reed's Crossing.
Is it Reed? What's the one in Bend? Bend was Reed's Crossing.
Reed's Crossing is Hillsborough.
What's the one in Bend?
Probably Reed's Crossing too.
I think it is Reed's
Like
Crossing.
every town has a.
I think it is. I swear it's Reed's Crossing in Bend too.
Because
So it might be two Reed's Crossing. I'm sure it is.
That wouldn't be an unusual name for that.
I'm almost positive it's Reed's Crossing in Bend, and then it's probably Reed's Crossing.
Yeah, like Butternut Creek and stuff.
Yeah, Butternut.
Reed's Crossing.
Yeah. So you probably, but those two locations, really, when you look at the street profiles and the linear parks and the trails and the integration with nature parks and things of that nature, that's a lot of the best practices that we implemented in the Kingston Terrace Master Plan and RTSP and a bunch of those. They are kind of considered in.
And did New Homes do them?
They have them integrated into their plan down there. So as you see the town center take shape, you're going to see some of that stuff come online. I think theirs is more of like, you're going to have more of like a town center vibe, more like a Ranco Station vibe for the Kingston Terrace Town Center. But as it gets into Charlton Woods and further to the east, you're going to see it densities go down, the street fluidity kind of gets a little bit windier, and you have some more traffic calming devices and elevated crossings and interactions with nature and more open space components, whereas what you're seeing New Home develop right now is going to be pretty intense, pretty dense, and but it's still going to have those that linear park block, which is kind of we came came up with that concept out of, like Park Avenue in downtown Portland along PSU, where you have like a cultural center where people can gather, where you have like an amphitheater sort of thing and a splash pad, and you could do a Saturday market and things of that nature. So that was kind of the idea behind that. And we looked at some places in like Europe, Amsterdam, and like Potsdam in Germany, and Paris, and some others on how they kind of formulated or outfitted their cities to build those unique cultural centers that bring people together, and that's kind of what we were shooting for.
So that explains.
Not us. We did not do anything like that, but I have heard others do it. But no, we haven't done any of that yet. But we did use some of those like pictures and things from those areas where you kind of have like a plaza setting or something to that effect, and really get people out and walking things. So hopefully we see it come online and actually have that, because we don't have that here. We have a strip mall along 99W, and it really doesn't afford us a great cultural platform here.
Yeah.
If you want to send me to Europe, no.
That's right.
Either that or
Add it to the budget. Plug it into the budget. Anyways, as we go to the next one, this is our expenditures.
I just want to raise one more point. Property taxes run about 2 years behind reality. By that I mean, if you don't have something annexed by July 1st, or June 30th actually, it doesn't happen in the next tax. It takes 2 tax cycles before you even recognize the bare land in your tax base. And then you bring in the bare land, and it's 2 years, then the next year where you'll have maybe, if it started construction, you'll have a teeny-weeny value of this, some construction's happening again, and it's another year before, after the building is completed, you have that lag. So, I mean. 5-year cycle. Yeah.
So don't spend it before we actually get it.
But people need to be aware that the property tax revenues really lag behind reality. And when the area west of 131st came in, this city was, before that, was basically insolvent. We didn't have enough tax revenue coming in to maintain services. But it took 5 years of development west of 131st for the city, the tax value coming in to finally catch up so that the city became solvent.
And that was prior to Edgewater.
Oh, I'm talking about when Edgewater was being developed, but it was also we had a minor recession in the process, but it was a 5-year process for it to see revenues actually come in from that new area, while the city already had to provide police services, et cetera, to this area, but wasn't getting any dollars to support it.
That was my understanding too. In the
I lived
80s going into the 90s, like the city was not on a good trajectory.
Yeah.
We were basically on the verge of going bankrupt at that point in time.
Yeah, I lived out here in Bradley Woods. It was not a good time.
So if you were running a company and you had all these receivables, borrow against them, that's something that a city can borrow against?
Well, when we talk about the urban renewal district and being able to borrow against that, so we don't have to tax our residents, that's kind of what we're talking about. So what you do with the urban renewal district and revenue bonds is you set aside all the taxing in our area. It includes it would reshuffle the money that's going, and this is where a lot of the special districts don't like urban renewal, is it takes that money and it shuffles it and goes straight into this until the goals are achieved. So for us, it's to build a city hall, right? So we say, hey, we need to build a city hall, we're going to establish an urban renewal district, boom. All the funds that are collected right now for King City would then be funneled into this pot over the next 20 years. and then we would try to take revenue bonds out of that pot to pay for the construction of the building. And that way, the residents of King City don't have to pass like a new levy or a new whatever and see their taxes get raised.
And all this money is. We're going to pay for police staff.
Well, you still stay at your current level. It's any additional funds that come in. So,
Increase in property value.
yeah, you would have to be kind of set within your bubble. And then everything above that, you're stuck.
Yeah. And it's usually,
That's the downside of it.
usually a small amount that it will set and the 3% will go in, but it's whatever increase in value that happens above that base value plus the annual 3%.
Yeah.
That's what comes out. It usually works out. I was on the committee that set up the urban renewal district in Tigers. It works out to generally less than 1% of anybody's budget that's getting. But it's, it's a chunk of change, but every governmental entity goes through this at some point in their life. So school districts done it, the cities do it, counties, et cetera. So it's just the way the only way you have.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around how do you maintain the city's services as we are bringing more people within the city and we have more facilities and so on and so forth.
It hurts.
It
hurts.
certain
Challenge.
Yeah,
a
but that's
certain
part of.
level
So
service.
you could do, so say you wanted to add additional police or whatever else, then you could potentially add a levy or expand the current levy to add additional officers to that effect. You could do that. What we're trying to do is establish enough of a core group to get us through, and then we should be able to, once the city hall is online, start developing revenue streams off of the services provided at the city hall and the rec center that ultimately pay for itself, and also funnel money back into the organization to help pay for additional staff members. So
Mike, aren't the SDCs part of that funding source too?
they are, yes. The park SDCs are part of that funding source as well. So you have park SDCs, and then you would have the urban renewal and the revenue bonds out of urban renewal, and then you would also have monies collected for services, whether those are medical contract services for activities in the pool, whether it's like therapy pool sessions, or whether it's use of the spaces, whether it's a physical therapy class or a fitness class or something like that, and then access to the facility itself. So all those would be service fee related items that could potentially go into funding the debt service on the building.
If you want to,
HPRD.
in Tigers.
It's like what THPRD does, yeah.
If you want to take classes hither thither, related to their recreation program, you pay a fee. And if you don't live in the city, you pay a much higher fee as an out-of-district.
That's exactly how it would work.
No, I'm aware. Track and for that privilege I pay $10.
Yeah, and it would be very similar, like what we're trying to design is something very similar to that option, because we don't really have that option in this area. There is nothing other than Bay Club over in Tualatin and the Y down in Sherwood. Tiger is not part of THPRD. We are not part of THPRD, so there's nothing over here. And when we look at market need or market desire, there is a need and desire in our area, so it should function well according to our market.
Tiger Tualatin Aquatic Center, if we pool.
Could. We could also partner with the school districts for like some additional funding stuff, school activities, things of that nature, local nonprofits for basketball, local nonprofits for any sort of indoor facilities or what have you. So there would likely be a program for, like I mentioned earlier, renting out space or renting access, and thereby making it, what do you want to say?
A revenue stream rather than a revenue draw.
Yeah, I think that's really critical for King City in the almost immediate future, because the pools are owned by KCCA that we have, and so only people who live in KCCA are allowed to use those facilities, for which they pay an annual fee. It seems to me that might be a simple, short-term revenue stream, is to reach an agreement with KCCA to allow people who don't live in KCCA to use those facilities, paying a fee. I think that's something, a short-term moneymaker that would help KCCA, and it would also help people.
It would add to the community and activity revenue.
Yes.
So if I could just move on just a little bit, yeah. So if you look at the 2 pages, one is general fund revenues and one is general fund expenditures. Now, you'll hear me say that we're anticipating to deficit spend to cover the additional staff members that we're hiring. And so when I say that, what I mean is if you look at the bottom line versus the cash carryover to the contingency reserve, you'll notice that number that we're projecting is smaller. Now, that means that we're essentially planning to spend more than we're possibly going to make. But the budget itself is balanced. You'll notice that the 2 numbers at the bottom are relatively the same number, 1 digit difference. But we're also anticipating that as revenues come online with housing, that contingency and reserve number will be able to begin growing again. So I just want you to be aware that we are intending to essentially deficit spend for the first year or 2 with the revised union agreement until we can get those houses on board. And then potentially we should see an equalization and be able to, again, hire more staff as those houses come online. But it's kind of a nerve-wracking period of growing pains that you see right before you.
Exactly what I'm talking about, the lag of property taxes to reality.
Yes. All right.
Are there any questions on the general fund expenditures? Or we can take a comfort break?
I have one general question when it comes to the building department general fund expenditures, Mike.
Okay.
So you're talking about the risk of potentially growing your team, yet we've budgeted $1 million for contract services to support that building. Wouldn't it be cheaper to actually hire people?
Well, because of the diversity that we would need, we would still have to contract out for some services, so we'd end up still paying money out. But yes, within the next year or so, I would prefer if we could bring some of these in-house. I just don't have anywhere to put them right now, John.
I understand that's the biggest problem, but I think, and this is the business I live in, so even if we had an inspector who was able to review plans in-house, that would be a benefit to everybody involved and to the growth of the city.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to get there at some point, building. I would think that a small city like us should be able to get like a building official / inspector person that's willing to do both.
Yep. We have a version of that in town in our commercial called the facilities permit, where it's everything's on a T&M rate, time and material, associated to each project, but they review the permits coming in, approve the permit. They're also the inspectors who inspect the building, so they're engaged and you're being paid for time that they actually spend.
Yeah, and I figure that position's probably a $200,000 a year position, by the way. So it's
I agree.
A little bit more.
I'll just reiterate how important that is for the counselor. I just got a new furnace. It took over a month to get a contract inspector to come out and approve that my furnace was appropriately installed. And that's not kosher. So, and it's not the city's fault, and it's not necessarily a contractor's fault, because they have to do it for lots of cities, but that's not good business in the long term. I can't remember the name,
Claire Company does ours here in,
for furnaces and things. But that's
I mean-
different than, I mean,
yeah, it should be clear.
okay, well, I was personally very disappointed that it took that long, and I had to make a tough call twice to get it taken care of.
Who is your installer?
They set up an appointment initially, but the company couldn't follow through.
I'll tell you, when we built that pool out there, Clear Company was fantastic.
Yeah, they're usually really responsive and.
I'm just saying, you know, that's a reason why you really want to get it in-house over time. It provides a better service to our residents.
Can we take a 10-minute break and be back at 11?
I call it back to order?
Yes, back to order. Everybody,
All right.
Mike, please tell us about the general.
Okay. Hopefully, we'll just move along this pretty quickly. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. But we have some notes up here so you can kind of get an idea of what it is. The easiest way for me to do this is to kind of go through, and I'm not going to do line item by line item. I'm going to go through, because we've already been through a lot of explaining on what the expenditures are. And we also have notes within the your budget that you can kind of look at, but.
They don't see the notes.
Oh, they don't have this notes, okay. As we start off, you'll see the first page is the resource page. We're proposing a main fund balance of $3.6 million. We have interest and accounts receivable, for non-collectible, those are those tickets that we talked about. And then you have, budgeted the $1 million for building permits as we go on down. The passport fees, you'll see at $200,000, franchise fees at $300,000. You'll see that those numbers have, the franchise fee stuff is stayed pretty flat. LGIP, local government investment pool. So that is our interest rate off of the money that we have in their account. So we hold roughly $3.8 to $4 million in there typically. FDIC only insures $250,000, so we only try to keep $200,000 or less in our checking account. And then we keep the majority of our money in our LGIP pool, and it can build interest, and that's what you realize.
I just didn't know what the.
And we get a better interest rate when it's pooled with other.
Ultimately, the next one, you'll see the local option levy at line 16. You'll see our total resources on line 20, and then the total resources of everything down at the very bottom at the 8.4 million.
I have a question on line 9, that we went up from like 25,000 to 320. Why are we in?
Technically, we went from 3,000 on up, but yeah, so we are estimating that as the Metro surcharge because of the number of units that we were building. You'll see, like, back in 2022, 2023, we really didn't have much. That was a flat year for us following COVID. And then you'll see, like, the year following that, we had a number of units. And then over this year and next year, we're projecting a ton of units at 200 plus units. So a big jump. Yes.
What page are we on? Sorry.
Page 1 of the resources on the general fund.
Thank you.
And then we're moving to page 2 now. Page 2 is our expenditures. You'll see that, expenditure summary, So, you'll see that our personnel have increased from approximately 10 personnel to near 16. As with that, so goes our salaries. We're also projecting a salary bump with the union agreement, as mentioned earlier.
That's the police union, yes.
It's police and admin. We only have one, so it's everybody. As we scroll on down, you'll see contract services on line 11. That's, of course, our building code stuff. Scrolling on down, other big changes that you're going to see are our legal services under line 20. As you know, we've had a series of legal challenges. So that just basically sets a bar in case there's more.
When they lose, do they have to pay it depends, I know.
It just depends on the judgment. Like, we just won on Friday, and I doubt we'll collect anything.
If it's land use, if it goes to LUBA, there's no attorney's fees award. If it goes to the Court of Appeals, since we had one of the lawsuits against the city go, then there's an award of attorney's fees, but that motion can take months to be completed. So at some point, the city will receive attorney's fees from that.
But the rest potentially.
Yes. And that's the majority of the lawsuits.
You'll see some big increases when we go into like city council, city manager, planning. Those are a lot of the office stuff that's in there, as well as public outreach. and additional personnel as toward the bottom there. And then our police department, we also have a new sergeant and officer position, so. Depends on page two.
I do. Remember. Line 8. A substantial increase, just a picture on what kind of stuff are we talking about?
A couple desks, laptops, server back here. We are also doing the tough books for our police, those are under
And
the.
mostly it's the postage for the passport. And we are selling the passport, selling the postage for passport. People come in, they pay for the postage. That's we put a postage expenditure in this, office supply.
So it's a expenditure, but it's also a gain.
About
So if you flip back to the other page, you'll see like
Yeah, you see the details.
the detail on
On page 1.
Yeah, I mean, we can go to
Never mind,
to all the details later, but essentially, the more passports we process, the more expenses we have on postage. But we also recoup costs on what we charge people for those passports.
Make money on that postage.
We make money, yes.
And that's probably in the notes somewhere.
It's in the when you flip the page and you go into the details, you'll see it outlined there.
All right,
Kind
contract,
of like the summary of everything.
contract services on line 11.
Yeah, that's your building codes is the one that's taking the majority of that.
Okay. Special department expenses, line 13.
You need to go look through each department. We have.
Okay.
Special department expenses, that's, outreach, so we have that new public information officer, as well as outreach newsletters, online platform, and tools to actually, keep going. So we're anticipating that we're gonna have, some new software platform. They're going to require probably some subscriptive services as well as computers and things of that nature.
Okay.
Screen.
A couple last questions. Building maintenance equipment repair, line 15. That's for, actor?
This building, so when we go into the following pages on building maintenance, you'll see it's for supply and cleaning services for this. So we, contract with Expresso to do janitorial service on this building twice a week. And then we also have other services we'll have to contract with to clean up the offices at that location as well.
Last question, $14,200 for uniforms, is that for the police?
Yes, it should be. Where is it? 117 uniform?
Uniforms, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Back when the building was new, there was a decision to put that money there so the building stayed in good condition, that we would have that cleaning so that we had a building. So that was a discussion, both in City Hall and approved in the budget.
I was on that, I was on council when that
So
was
the way that
approved.
the budget reads generally is there's a couple summary sheets first two, and then as you flip back, you'll get into the details on 3, 4, and 5 of each fund tab. So everything that we just discussed is broken down and identified on pages 3, 4, and 5.
Contract services.
That was a building.
That's the building codes department for the building inspections,
It used to be the planning commission or the planning department.
it used to be me. And then we'd still contract with Claire. Technically, if there's a challenge to the building official or whatever else, then they have a public hearing here, and then I have to sit in as like a hearings officer or something on it, so hopefully that doesn't happen. The new rule that, the Department of Building Codes Division applied 2 years ago now, that you have to have somebody tapped in-house to be here.
Mike, continuing on 11, another naive question. On page 5, maybe we're not there yet. Anyway, number 11, contract services. Is that third party? Because earlier in the meeting, you said something about diversity, so you have to allow for that. So we have to have some third-party people.
So we just don't have the resources in-house to do it ourselves. So there's a lot of specialty work that we don't have here, right? So if I were to, So this one particularly is for our park maintenance group and for building maintenance and janitorial services. So it's all those pieces. That's included under that 186,000. So, that is basically someone who comes in and cleans this office. It's the people that go down and maintain the turf fields at the park and clean up down there. We have Dave, who's one person, but I can't expect him to do everything. But I do have him kind of oversee these contractors.
Unless you are a city the size of Portland, you're going to be outsourcing things. When I was on the Tiger Council, we paid somebody to do the janitorial work. We paid somebody to do a lot of the park maintenance we didn't have.
We also have our copier. We have our copier service, which is on contract. We have payroll that's on contract, but we have a number of contract services just because we're so small.
What additional is we're getting for the extra 100,000? Because I think all those things we've been paying for before. What additional contract?
Mostly building permits, Rachel.
It's the new office stuff. It's the new office across the way, which is like $1,000 and change a month. And then all the additional add for that, insurance and everything else. Moving expenses and the like.
Right, but that's under the contract services line
It's
item?
under that line 11, contract services.
Okay.
On page 5.
So that's
$186,000.
is $100,000?
Yeah. We're budgeting that in case there's additional expenses for whatever might come up, new server, IT work, janitorial, insurance, any sort of contract services that we're going to need to get that office up and running and maintained.
Okay.
Any other questions on 5? Moving on to finance and planning on line 6, the breakdown for finance and planning department. You'll see probably line 11, another one for contract services, is $300,000 of grant expenditures, long range planning grant, and our match for the West Side Trail, as well as the trying to address the erosion and trail around the waterfront. You'll see our full-time hires have increased here. Yep. So you'll see from 2022, you also have accounted Diana, Max, and the new PIO, essentially. So that's why you get to the 7. Any other questions on the finance and planning department?
Just an informational thing. The planning commission has been very concerned about the erosion issue down below the park, which is moving somewhere between 3 and 5 feet a year. We are having a workshop to discuss this issue at our next meeting outside of the hearing that we have scheduled, to look at what are the grant opportunities, what could we do, because Clean Water Services told us to fix the problem it'd be around $2 million, which needless to say. So, if any of you have any bright ideas that we could discuss, the Planning Commission would be very grateful.
We are applying for a grant to at least try to get some of the work started.
Yeah.
So we submitted for $400,000 with a $200,000 match to Metro for try to shore up your develop the trail that's south of the park. There's a trail down there right now, but it's down there and walk.
Sorry, Mike, did you cover up
What's that?
your microphone? Everything went.
That was Max. You're not.
That's Max. He's over. Sorry, I'm over on the side.
No, I
Yeah, Mike.
can't hear anybody anymore. Thanks.
On the before we go on the finance, I did notice the audit costs, and I think my notes, 2018, I believe we had another audit firm come in and quote me. At that time, we decided to stay with Rogers, And, they have failed miserably, and I think we should shop again. I just want that on the record that we should get a discount too. Thank you.
And I have to register, I voted against keeping them.
You did, because you mentioned you shouldn't have them for more than 7 years. Now I'm mentioning that we're at that 7 years again, and the last 7 years have been ugly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we want to finish up the audit that we started,
I understand,
and then do an RFP to get a new one.
and hopefully you don't get 5 people doing that audit, because she has a revolving door.
Yeah, it's been a challenge keeping hold of.
Very challenged that has made the city look bad,
Well, it's,
and made a lot of fuel to the fire of discontent when we had a lousy vendor. And that's just so unfortunate. And
well,
that,
it wasn't all their fault. I mean, we did have some situations with others, but it was, it's still the large portion of it too, so. And, you know, it doesn't help when we're changing auditors every quarter and we're halfway through an audit, then have to start back over and go halfway through another exact same audit, and then have to start over halfway through and have to start over, so.
and they never understood your software.
And this is an issue that residents don't understand. And, it really costs a lot of money when you have to go through this nonsense.
We've got a few people with a hard stop at noon, so I'm trying to get it.
Okay.
I got a real quick question. You got FTEs of 7 on page 6, finance.
Yeah.
Where was that time on this, Mike?
Me, under the city manager.
I'm looking there and I don't see any FTEs. Or maybe that's just total personnel services.
Page 5.
Page 5.
You're right.
Trying to find out what your salary is. But
You can get it anytime you want.
And millions and millions of dollars.
It's broken out under the, is it allocated to each fund or something?
Yeah, there's a piece.
Like a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, because I'm allocated across all the different funds.
like a half person here, half person there.
So many hours, and those hours add up when you divide it by 2080, that's a full-time equivalent. That's a,
Okay.
That's an audit trail
And the
issue.
next one is court, page 8, just walks through our court,
Sam, right?
Yeah, most of it is our courts, our judge, and we do have a backup judge now, who can come on.
Oh, who's the backup?
It only mattered once. Do you remember her name? I didn't catch it from Judge Libya.
somebody younger, so she's gonna stay longer. Oh, I mean, he's,
Possibly. Yeah, he's just,
You know what?
yeah, he's getting to the point of it, so he's trying to get his replacement and stuff going and set it up. Any questions on page 8? Any questions on page 8, Court? On to the building department, again, you're gonna see the contract services being escalated from the 36 to the 135 to the 1 million, based on the number of housings that we're projecting. Next page is the police department. You'll notice that we've added 2 additional, full-time hires over the last couple of years. My hope is that we can get to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get accredited. That is our goal. So, hopefully over the next couple of years, as houses come on board, we'll be able to we just added another officer that might get us close. Ernie is working on the accreditation, and hopefully we'll be able to get there, because right now we have more than we've ever had before, so.
How's he doing with the accreditation? Is he getting?
We just got our new officer on, and we just got the sergeant appointed. We have swear-ins, I think, on Thursday. So once we get those folks sweared in and we start looking at our calendar, there's gonna be a period of time where we have to go through some trainings. And then hopefully we can get the schedule on board, and then we can have, a supervisor here 24/7, and either the lieutenant, chief, or the sergeant. And then we should have at least 2 squads of officers. But it does still become a challenge when anyone takes time off or holidays or what have you. So, still being a small agency without that duplicity and without that redundancy built in, we're still struggling to tell. I think I want to add about 4 more officers as we get more folks on board. So, probably over the span of the next 4 to 5 years, I want to probably try to add like a year.
Yeah, we lost,
And then my ideal situation is to have 2 squads of 4, 2 sergeants, lieutenant, and a chief. That's my ideal department for a city our size, once we get through the majority of the development out.
So we'll be 24/7, 2 years, 3 years from now, maybe?
I'm projecting that we're really close to 24/7 now. With the add of the new officer, we might actually be able to cover that gap, once we get him fully trained.
So if somebody goes on vacation, and we just back up by one.
Yeah, if somebody goes on vacation, then we won't.
we really got,
We have overtime.
we really got hit. One of our officers, was overseas in Afghanistan for a year. And that really hit the department hard, because you obviously can't replace them. But,
Usually the position opens.
yeah, that's the primary issue now, is when people have vacations or medical leave or,
They don't have a substitute police department.
One of the big challenges that we are facing right now with the police department, part of the stuff that you're seeing here with additional costs, we went on the body cam. And with body cam, our lieutenant is also our IT person, so he has to go through and review all those. So his time is being sucked away in just handling all the data. And he has to go through and watch hours and hours of body cam footage and then archive all that. So it's usually you have a one full-time person set aside for just that cause, and we just don't have it yet. I think it has to be sworn. So anyways, we have that in there. We also have generator programmed into some of the grant expenditures, and we have vehicle purchases as well as replacement laptops, trying to get the Toughbook laptops on board, and some security camera replacements.
do we see the county screwing things up again in terms of WACA, et cetera?
Oh, no, we haven't seen big increases there. However, that is a tale of caution that we're monitoring. If our call volumes go over a certain level, then we will no longer be.
In this year, we take a big jump.
Yes, a huge jump once we kick hers.
Like a exponentially,
Pay a small
There,
fee
yeah.
to WACA, et cetera. Does everybody know what WACA is? That's the emergency call,
and
911.
Oh,
So, moving on into street fund, we have about $400,000 worth of expenditures on capital expenditures for our street fund. As I mentioned, that includes the stormwater up here. As we go through, if you have any questions, just please let me know. There's not a lot of depth to these funds other than what they're used for, which is street maintenance and repair.
I wish we could go back to the county, things that they screwed up when they built those places, causing some of the problems that we have.
On page 2, you're going to see the total allocated requirement for the street fund. Breakdown of those funds follow on page 3 through 5. You can see how that's going, whether it's for the garage, whether it's surface maintenance, traffic control, whether it's engineering services or contract services for asphalt and concrete.
Can I ask really a quick question? With the new building someday, when the new city hall, will there be access parking area for the police? That had been a big problem. Tiger,
There is.
they finally did that problem.
Yeah, there is. It's under the building.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a Sally Port and a protected parking area under the building. And it pops out on the fire department side. So you pull in the back, you go into the police side of the house, which would have your prisoner transfer, Sally Port, and protected vehicle parking, and then they can exit out the other side. It's very similar to what Lake Oswego did off of A Street with their police department down below.
So as a resident, if I wanted to go in and talk to an officer about a non-emergency issue, I can do that there, because I can't do that here.
You could, you can come here during business hours, and we can we can call an officer on the non-emergency line, let them know that, hey, there's somebody here at the office, and typically an officer will come down and meet with you. Over there, it'd be the same thing. My hope is that we would have eventually a clerk out front to deal with, calls. And if you actually look at the setting, it has, like intake up front. So there'd be a couple, police tech people up front that, can do the intake and waiting room and everything else. So it would operate just like a regular police station. That's over there. This would still be a satellite station, but most of the customer interaction with police would probably be down at that location, where we would actually have a person at month, basically manning a window.
I think that's critically important.
Yeah, I can't wait to get there. I'm really excited about what the future holds for King City if a lot of these people.
FYI, even if you're in Tigard, they don't always have any officers sitting right there in the building.
During business hours.
Yeah.
Probably better to always call the non-emergency line
Yeah.
to talk to them rather than.
Mhm.
Well, I talked to Dave up here, and he just looked at non-emergency line number on.
So on to page 5 here, we have the street improvements. We're estimating about $400,000 in street improvement, $30,000 in truck equipment and tools, potential truck replacement in case this one goes down and dies. Yeah.
So do you have a list of your $400,000 improvements?
We do. It's essentially, like I mentioned earlier, we had 6 streets on, and we had to knock off 4 of those because we're paying for Crown and the water up here, which is almost 2/3 of that. And we have 2 other streets, I think. Crown, 120, yeah, down by King Richard, right? And Versailles.
So the list from last year plus 2 new ones, kind of what we're saying on the.
We had to reduce it, so we. It's a stormwater issue on Crown. Yeah.
Right.
So we had the list that carries over every year. There's a list of roads that we try to hit every year that's identified on what level of engineering, depreciation that they're at. So, like, we go out, we take a look at a road facility, and if it's, alligator and broken, or if the underside of the road is falling apart, it's graded. Our engineers identify that, we put it in a matrix, and then we try to keep up with that matrix. Problem is that our street revenue is not keeping up with the demands of that matrix. So every year we get a little bit further and a little bit further behind, and that's why we've been trying to pass that gas tax for the last 8 years.
Sewer usage charge would go, potentially go.
The stormwater, so to like $150,000 to $200,000 of the money that we're spending this year out of this 400 is going to stormwater, which we don't have a fund for. So it's coming out of our street fund instead of a stormwater fund.
And that's
So if
confounded with the street improvements itself on Crown, so just Crown Drive right over there on the corner is $300,000.
Yeah. So if we had, a stormwater erosion fee of like $5 a month on everybody's water sewer bill, then that fund would go into street fund to handle stormwater issues and erosion issues, things like that.
Approximately how many addresses?
We have, right now, 2,600 addresses within King City, and then I think there's another 1,500 coming on. So you're at 4,000.
Could I make a suggestion when the budget goes to council, is that this issue specifically is discussed in detail, that the public needs to know that huge amount of money that normally theoretically would be available to do tarring or there's basically going to be $0 because of this huge problem that we've got right here. And that's not right, wrong, or up. It's just, I think it's going to be important that discussion occur.
Sure, and King City is old enough now that we're going to experience more of that, so we need to have a way to address this.
Yeah, in the long term, but I think specifically for 25-26, that should be discussed in detail.
It's a point people don't understand, and they need to understand it, and if we put it out there, that helps justify some,
Yes, for the future.
questions that they wonder, how come nothing ever gets fixed? Well, we have this much, and the fee's going down. Perfect?
Any other questions? Moving on to the local option levy, which is pretty straightforward. Money is collected from the local option levy, basically transfer in and offset the cost of the police budget. The police budget is almost $2 million. The local option levy is $450,000. That $450,000 augments their budget. Any questions on that? Next one is the park system development charges. System development charges for parks can only be used for capital improvement and for property acquisition pieces. We're estimating that the revenue from the 240 some odd houses is going to bring essentially approximately $2.5 million in park revenues. We're setting aside $1 million of those that would be rededicated to park improvement, and $500,000 for the acquisition of said parks. Also, you'll notice that there's $1.25 million put in reserve for contingencies for future and operating contingencies.
I didn't see where the maintenance of the park is allocated.
It was under the general fund, under the contract services.
I think that issue needs to be addressed.
We can't put it under the park.
No, I understand that, but the point is, the population, residents don't understand that, and I think when council reviews this at its hearing, we need to discuss where maintenance comes, because one of the issues that I've heard about the trail is, well, who's going to pay the maintenance?
Yeah, that's why on number 16, we transfer 10,000 to general fund to cover the maintenance.
No, I understand that.
That's personnel.
I'm talking about educating our public.
Yeah, and so, I mentioned earlier, adoption of fees, right? There has to be a political appetite for the adoption of fees, and there's at least 3 different subsets of fees that we'd like to propose and see, but there has to be political appetite from the council to actually impose those fees, and that was the Parks and Rec fee of maybe $5 on your PGE bill, and then a stormwater and erosion fee of $5 on your water sewer bill. That's kind of where we're at, and that's what we're asking. And in addition to that, I would really like to see the council put forth a ballot measure to adopt a gas tax of 3 or 5 cents a gallon, which would then allow us more money that we could put to our roads and catch up on this.
Our gas is still a lot cheaper than most other places, as you probably are aware.
And half the revenue would not come from King City people.
Yes, more than half.
Yeah. So we just have a couple more to go. Are there any questions on the FCC?
To beat the dead horse on number 6, the PSD, is there a project list that that's a huge chunk of money.
Yep.
Can we itemize it out?
So there's going to be a lot more coming in. So basically, I don't have an itemized list other than what's in our master plan. So our master plan identifies a couple of community parks, linear parks, riverfront parks and trails. For the most part, what's coming in now is the stuff in Kingston Terrace Town Center. And so we have a linear park there. We also have the Harold and Daly property that might be a park or might not.
Is it possible to itemize things out, to have a project list?
It's impossible to, it's not possible to do it right now because I don't know where those are going to go. So other than just a general, there's going to be something. That's all I have, right? And until I actually have engineered and designed plans, I don't know where those are.
That's a lot of money for it to be.
The revenue source, that's coming from every building permit.
Yeah, that's coming in from every building.
That's
money coming in.
That's why we budgeted more last year than all the permits came on.
Okay.
We moved it because of all those 250 houses coming on. That's gonna be where this revenue comes from.
Okay.
Mike's talking about the dreams of where we might, it's in the plan, but it's not final.
Right.
Because you need to get X amount of parkland that you're required to do, and when it comes available. Like right now, we have the acre available.
And some of them might be reimbursement. So
Yeah.
what you see here,
Some of those
expenditures are probably reimbursements back to New Home Company for the land that they dedicate to parks that we have to buy from them, for whatever the market rate value.
Like what the King City, there's a park down
Yeah,
there now.
like the park down at King City.
What Edgewater had to put in, and like,
And they got a big STC credit for that improvement. So that's a lot of what you see there.
that's history.
And then what's not identified and what's not expended is what you see under contingency, the, like 1.3 or 1.4 million.
I think this would be a very good subject for a workshop council meeting to discuss these in detail. So again, we're trying to educate our residents about
The message that gets out there, what we need in the future, and what the city council is working for the people, and to inform them that it isn't, that things happen, and if we don't do them,
Yeah.
one of the reasons this meeting is so important is to find out where some of these issues are that the council needs to start educating the public about.
And so how do we educate the public?
We have a new public information
Yes,
officer coming.
and workshop meetings that the council has
We're working, yeah.
will provide information to the public, our new hire, to start doing that kind of.
And that, once again, is gonna be critically important.
Very, very important
Yeah.
for what we have coming.
Again, we're a year out,
To
really.
rent KCCA across the street and have the various experts there and do that kind of walk
Yeah.
thing, and people
Yeah.
can, make suggestions.
Sure, like a charrette.
I would love that.
Very
So we
good.
need a plan, right? Like,
I don't know what the topic was, but Gretchen was having one of those to inform people. And the little thing when it, so she had me holding the sign. So the whole time I'm holding this sign behind it when she's giving whatever speech and informing.
so charrettes are great, charrettes are wonderful. We do them when we actually have a project on the table. And Max is applying for some grants that involve some projects down at the King City Park and others. We still have, we applied for the grant for the West Side Trail, which is just like $4 to $8 million project. It's not getting
I
funded.
spent my own money.
So,
Put those things on.
we're below the funding line on the ARPA two. So when we looked at funding for West Side Trail, that isn't happening. So, that's another 5, 10 years now.
maybe we need a charrette of just saying, visioning charrette.
Yeah.
Not a concrete.
Visioning where though?
Where we see the city in 5
Okay,
years.
So,
Okay, because we've already done a visioning charrette through the Kingston Terrace Town Center that identifies where all the parks are and along the river and everything else.
I think what we need is something, and this comes out of going to the League of Oregon Cities Conference, so it's not just me, but basically you evaluate, you envision, and then you execute. So I think maybe we need to have a charrette that tells, that informs the public where we stand right now. What we envision and ask from them what they envision, and then we formulate how the heck are we gonna get.
So we've done all that.
But most of the public-
Not in my lifetime here.
No, we have. We just finished it. That's what the Kingston Terrace plan and CSP, and literally 8 years worth of doing
Yeah.
exactly that.
Okay.
So now we're in the execute the plan stage.
Maybe we need a refresher course.
I think we,
But I think what Mr. Gerhard mentioned earlier about getting those visions and goals up on plasterboard so everyone sees what those are, and maybe we look at those visions and goals and then see where we're going. But to go back through a visioning process when we just spent $1.5 million completing a visioning process is very,
I guess maybe
redundant.
I'm not asking for the full-blown visioning process the way.
I think it's,
like a goal setting session.
Like
What the-
having a neighborhood coffee club.
Yes.
Where,
this is what we can do at KCCA, but most of the HOAs are very small, and we have to be creative to do something like
We're
that.
almost done.
Yeah, we're almost out of time too, so I'm trying to get through this as much as.
I was gonna say, I know
No.
what it means, kind of, but if you,
The charrette is what it is it's a ongoing community meeting. So you have a series of consultants, all the players are there, people that are engineers and architects and landscape folks and environmental scientists, and all your specialists are all in the same room, and you keep them there for like a 2 to 3 week period, and it's open house, and people come in, and everyone's walking, and everyone has comments, and they're incorporating all that stuff into that for that entire period of time, and that's when you see the vision coming to life, and that's what we did when we started this project, and when we started all the planning work that just was finalized in the last couple of years. We had those big open charrettes, and then what you do is after that 2 to 3 week period, then you have a break. Everyone breaks away, and then all the consultants go back and they formulate all that data. They come back, and we had another open house, and that open house showed the work that was completed, and then everybody provides input on that. They go back, they revise it, and that has transpired over the last 7, 8 years. That's what's been transpiring.
We did a whole bunch of those in 17 and 18 while we were preparing for unfortunately, we didn't get enough people to visit, and that's
But-
where.
I knew,
That's a lot of money. Like you're talking, $400,000 or $500,000 project, maybe even more, to get everybody in the room, paying for all those people all that time. And there's a difference. I think what we can do, and what I try to do every year, is sit down with the council and be like,
French word.
what do you want to do? Like, let's figure out what we want to try to accomplish, and then come up with a solid vision for, like, let's set our course, and then put the wind in the sails and head that way. That's how I love to work, is like, if I have a solid goal, like, hey, here's what we want to get accomplished, let's go. And so I try to bring the council in together to find out what they want to do. And then once I have that goal set, then I can then direct resources to accomplishing that goal.
I knew that you'd done that. I wasn't familiar with the word.
I wasn't when it started either.
An intense collaborative workshop focused on developing a design or plan for a project, often involving community participation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like that.
We had a number of along the way. We had one for the Kingston Terrace Master Plan, one for the TSP, one for concept plan, and everything else. So it was pretty intensive in the very beginning of those projects in 17, 18.
Gretchen,
COVID hit.
specifically for the budget.
Specifically, I was talking about the transportation piece when I initially brought it up, because Mike was talking about the problem up here on Crown. And that's been a major complaint of the residents from day one, is why aren't we getting transportation, fixing roads? And if you have a major problem, this is not the first time we've had a major problem happen that just drains everything. Also, because we're a small city, we can apply for grants from the state, and it's $75,000, if my memory is correct, is what we get. Well, $75,000 doesn't go very far. And secondly, we've got the issue with the federal government on the disabilities for the curbs.
Oh, yeah.
Those changed when I was on the Tiger Council. The day the first one went into effect, your cost for doing working, around an intersection went up 40%. So if you had $100 expense, all of a sudden it was $140. And then they kept changing the rules for the curbs, and every time that you wanted to do another project, you had to tear out, if they had already put them in, and put new curbs in because they changed the angle or something. Sorry, it's just, it's very complicated.
Detail.
I think Gretchen gives a good point. Anytime that we touch a road, we have to fix ADA ramps. And so the last one is the Transportation Development Tax. Again, we're seeing a big bump on that because of the number of units that we're projecting. Right now, we have a beginning fund balance of $600,000, up almost $150,000 from the prior years due to the number of houses that we had in the last year. We aren't anticipating too many big expenditures out of this, so it's all going into contingency for the time being. And that is our last fund. ARPA is already zeroed out. So we should be good on that.
We have the
SDC fund for transportation. And this is where we're gonna see some SDC projects, so we've have that under the capital outlay. Those are basically, SDC, credits that we end up paying out, or we see the loss of that potential revenue. So the revenue is approximately $2 million, but we're probably gonna end up paying $1 to $1.5 million in SDC credits for the work that they do over and above that of a local street. That makes sense? Any other questions?
It's confusing to the public.
I say one thing.
Yeah.
Going through all the things we're going through, it amazes me that you have that much knowledge, and that you have all these boxes, and you've got so many moving parts, and I'm pretty proud that you're our manager.
I appreciate that.
I second what Denny.
Yes, and I didn't mean to say we
Start over.
I was more like thinking it should just sort of be an informational meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who could,
I think there's
We need a lot more of that.
room for discussion on that. If you get that done, it makes the public understand the budget and not complain as much as they understand. And then it makes your, passing of a gas bond much easier, and any of the other levies.
This is why,
And that's why we have the information officer, and then us as volunteers, and encourage and step up when we can facilitate
this is one of the
information
reasons
sharing.
we used to have 2 council meetings a month, so we could have these kind of workshop events. And it's really important. You know, part of council's job is not just to pass this, it's to educate the residents. And quite frankly, over the last 4 years, the city council has not had,
Too many distractions.
there've been too many distractions, and the city council's not doing their job because of it.
Can I ask
Yeah.
questions? I'm trying to be time sensitive. Can I ask for any questions for Mike from anybody here on the numbers, and Katie or Mira? Does anybody else have any, or online, are there any questions? Well, then I would like to I would ask for a motion to approve the budget so well presented by our city manager, our city financial person, and our new person, Katie, who
Yay, Katie.
I presented it well. Thank you. You worked, well, it was well presented. Thank you.
I have, one comment before we do this, and that is, given the political situation going on, I think it is incredibly important that the committee and the council be incredibly transparent about what's going on and not have anything going on that could create even the appearance of somebody's hiding something.
I think we should run scared, yes.
And I'm very concerned, we have a council person who has a spouse who's an employee. And I'm very, I'm being very blunt.
Yeah.
That creates the appearance of an impropriety if that person is involved in the voting.
So I've talked to the mayor already. Yeah.
And I want to compliment her online. She did excuse herself without anyone ever saying anything.
I just
She
wanted,
knew about it and has done that, and runs a nice snappy meeting. Thank you.
but my concern is making sure it's in the minutes here that the committee recognizes this issue and that the council recognizes this issue. I'm not trying to.
Can I say something?
I think the mayor.
No matter where you go, no matter what group you're in, the word transparency comes up, and nobody knows what it means. You and I wouldn't agree on it, you and I wouldn't agree on it. It's just a word that's used.
Well,
Trendy word.
here's the thing. If we weren't being transparent, people wouldn't be showing up at every meeting. And we wouldn't be having 50 or 60 people in the lobby. We would have 0 people because no one would know what was going on. But the fact that we have a lobby full of people every day, then
I'm just making sure it's on the record. It was nothing against you, Rachel.
Rachel, please.
Leave Rachel alone.
She's gonna tell us something.
Can you hear me?
she should come up and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm well aware of all of the to recuse myself of. I've been working closely with OGEC, so I hope that that helps temper any of those issues.
I just wanted it on the record, Rachel. I wasn't,
No, you
never mind.
And I wanna,
For putting it on the record.
Record that you are working with them so that you are well aware. That's wonderful.
All right, so we're gonna lose some voting members here in a second, so we had a call for the question, is that what?
I move approval of the budget.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Who?
Oh, and Mike, Counselor Braverman also joined the meeting.
Okay. Is there a second? It can be anybody.
Second.
Jenny has seconded it. Do we want a roll call vote? Is that what we do? Mike, would you call the roll call vote, please?
So, okay, gotcha. Counselor Gelfand,
Yes.
hang on one second, give me just have to,
Just make your voting grid.
right, I gotta make my voting
No
grid.
problem.
Okay. Counselor Tyso,
Yes.
Counselor Hartman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gearhart,
yes.
Commissioner Gaylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Boehner,
Yes,
Counselor Braverman,
I'm gonna abstain.
Commissioner Nichols Gearhart,
Yes.
Mayor Kazmierski abstaining, right?
I'm actually recusing myself of this vote.
Okay, gotcha.
Good word.
And Counselor Arditi is not here, correct? All right. Motion passes. Did I get everybody? Sure. Okay. Yes, motion passes 7-0-1. Thank you, everyone, for your presence today.
Before we leave, I want to go on record that I have absolutely no problem with Mayor's behavior. I think she's doing excellent.
no, it has nothing to do with that.
Anyway, I just want that to go on the record.
It's, having been involved, I taught ethics at the college level, and it's really important to have just the statement in the record. That's all I was,
I put in the statement in the record, we're all aware,
yeah,
and we acknowledge that.
yeah. That was all that was for.
Importantly, Rachel has acknowledged
Yeah,
that she
Yeah.
is in a special place, and
Yeah.
her acknowledgement is the most important.
yeah.
Special place, not special, Rachel.
It's just to make sure it's in the minutes.
Yeah, right.
So any others for the good of the order? I think we have 5 minutes we could potentially address.
Already.
I was gonna say something about, like, with everything that's been transpiring and the public outreach from our end has slowed because of all the legalities and all of the public records requests and all of the constant administrative stuff, which pulls at us and fractures our ability to actually move things forward. And so what you've seen is like a decrease in the functionality of our abilities to handle the load because the load has been so distracted lately. And so I hope with the addition of the public information officer that we'll be able to get back online with providing more of that public information and get it out there, because with all of the other political stuff that muddies the water and gets us distracted, we're less capable of achieving what we should be working on. And that has been very frustrating, and I know for myself and for Max and others in the building, where we feel like we're like the duck on the water, where it looks all calm on the surface, but we're battling like mad underneath, just going crazy. So hopefully we'll be able to move on now and start getting some positive stuff moving.
Are you gonna have introduction of the PIO or
Yeah.
sort of a thing?
We'll definitely do that. As soon as she's on, I think one of the first things we'll do is announce like a coffee hour, and then try to have a welcoming session, coffee hour. I think we'll have a new officer as well, and we'll invite our new sergeant, and just hopefully have a meet and greet opportunity with the new officer, sergeant, and the PIO. My guess is, based on the timing, I'd like to do coffee hour first here, and then at the 4th of July event, hopefully we'll have a presence at the park. I am not going to be able to attend the 4th of July event this year, but we are looking forward to providing a good venue. So we're trying to get a nice circus tent going with seating and some shade. Hopefully we can get a band going. We'll have water, stand cans, and then we'll check and see about other events, like fun events for the kids and stuff as well.
That's what we're,
Yeah, at the 4th of
you
July.
guys are meeting, I think.
Yeah, well, it's a small committee group of folks that are helping out with that. And then the other thing that we're trying to plan as well is a golf event in September. So those are our two big events that we're going to try to host and do better this year and see if we can. These are new things that we're taking on. So our hope is that both those events will have good sponsorship, and we'll ask everyone here to be a supporter of that and get the word out for us.
And volunteer some time.
Yes, volunteer some time, come play around a golf with us, and
I am.
decorate a golf cart and.
Mike, so you are working with Elaine Sims?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on that committee as is Dina, and,
And Tegan and Heather and.
No, I-
council asked me to be the person from the council as part of that committee Saturday night. And trying to hammer out the details between what happens here and what will happen down at the park and how we can coordinate it and
So we're taking care of a lot of the logistics. We're taking care of a lot of the logistics, but there's still like the vendor stuff that I think Tegan and a few other folks are trying to deal with.
Some stuff to Tegan on Saturday, because that's when I would be the balloon lady again, because I usually blow up 200 balloons for the kids. We get that many kids down there, and
You don't have that much.
We are going to turn into a pumpkin.
Is that Heather Wakeham?
yes. And Heather and I and a couple of people had a foundation. I wanted to say that some of us in the city forming a volunteer, a nonprofit that we had. The brouhaha of King City Community Foundation, the three of us that founded it all, I'm the only one left in the city. And it isn't a city matter, it's, we as volunteers need to do that, because King City doesn't have a church. There is no other. And so if the city doesn't pick up those events and work with a group, they need to be a nonprofit so that people can donate money to them. And, I don't know that.
We're gonna run out, and we have counselors turning into pumpkins here shortly. Can we get a motion to?
So, may I get a motion to adjourn our budget meeting? We did so well.
I thought we did.
Nope.
Okay. I did.
Pass the budget.
Passed it, we haven't closed the meeting.
So I have a motion. Is there a second?
That's all the most, yeah.
Jan seconded.
Okay. All those in favor?
I-
All right.
Yeah, we almost ended.
It is 11:59.
So anybody
You
that,
guys online have anything else to say before I turn off the meeting?
No, thanks, Max.
Nope.
and please plan on the 4th of July, we did talk about having all the counselors in there and looked at banners, that, when we have for the mayor and the.
You know what would be useful? Also have the planning commission.
And the planning commission, and I don't think the budget commission needs to be there.
Planning commission.
Blow up balloons.
What's going on now?
Okay, thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Adios.
Thank you, Mike, and the team. Excellent job.
Big thanks to these two who are phenomenal. And,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor puts our budget together. Katie, keep in mind.
Is there any way that